4 out of 10 bats were mesmerised to learn that the Hyperion tree in California is taller than Big Ben.
Ooh. 2 million out of 10 bats were proud that over 300 species of fruit depend on them to be pollinators.
Well, 2.2 out of 10 bats were bamboozled to learn that the Andean condor, the largest vulture in the world, has a wingspan of 3 metres.
0.00001 out of 10 bats were underwhelmed to learn that the largest reptile in the UK is a grass snake that's only 1 metre.
Hello and welcome to 8 out of 10 bats. It's our penultimate programme coming to you live from the wonderful British Wildlife Centre here in Surrey, home to more than 40 different species of UK wildlife, open to school visits, open to family visits, open to some fantastic photographic courses. Details about the British Wildlife Centre will be in the chat throughout the course of the evening. It's our penultimate programme, as I say, but we've got some great things coming up. We've got a young 13-year-old, Adam Symes, who's just won a Junior Science Prize for looking at garden bird feeding. Megs is going to be looking at one of the longest standing climate projects, looking at how that's impacting on grassland ecology in the UK. And Kezia, you get to meet Basil.
That was a joy. Every day I get to do something so different, and it's the first time doing these stuff. It's just
excellent.
Such an opportunity.
Basil the fox. Fantastic, we look forward to that. Before anything though, let's have our word of the day. Normally, of course, Susie Dent would be providing us with this, but we have another well-known face, a well-known lady to be presenting today, none other than Judy Dench. So here's Judy Dench with today's wildlife word of the day.
I've elbowed Susie out of the way today so that I can give you the word. And the word is Scythuism. Do you know what that is?
Scythuism. Scythuism.
What could that be?
No. Scythuism. It's a great word. I like saying it. I've said it enough times. Scythuism. If you know what that is, enter it in the chat. The first person that we see will win the 8 out of 10 mug. And we'll give you the answer, of course, at the end of the programme. Thank you very much, Judy, for stepping in for Susie today. Now, we are here in one of the British Wildlife Centre's enclosures with one of the most fantastic animals, and we are hoping that we're going to be able to show you them live now. We're going to crouch down, so if you guys crouch down there like that, I'll crouch here. And I've got some food, and I'm just going to start throwing it out to see if I can lure in the wildcats, because we've got 2 adults and a family of kittens here. Kezia, I'm just going to chuck it over your head there to get all of them in. Now, what about that? This is one of the joys of the British Wildlife Centre, being able to see creatures that in the wild, I mean, I've never seen one. George, I presume you haven't seen one either.
Look how cute. Look how cute the kittens are.
Stunning animals.
Just going to chuck a little bit more food around. Once they take it, they tend to run off. So. The thing is that in the wild, I mean, I remember going out and trying to see wildcats and only ever seeing what were clearly domestic moggies. I mean, they are a species that came over to the UK about 9,000 years ago when the ice retreated. They were widespread all over the UK. They would have been living here in the wild in Surrey, everywhere. But due to loss of habitat and relentless persecution in the 18th and 19th centuries, they were driven north to Scotland, so only a few of them lived there. And then we called them the Scottish wildcat. But sadly, then faced another problem, and that was that they were interbreeding with domestic cats. And as a consequence of that, a few years ago, they were described as functionally extinct for the very simple reason that they were so inbred, as it were, with those, hybridised, I should say, with those domestic cats, that only about 30 of them remained. So Saving Wildcats, formerly Scottish Wildcat Action, that's a project run by the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, have got together and they've been captive breeding them. And these animals here are part of that captive breeding programme. So these animals won't be going back into the wild because we're in here and they're getting used to people. Those that go back into the wild are kept away from people, but they will be part of that breeding group. And the really good news is that, sorry about the very noisy aircraft overhead, but the very good news is that this year the project reached another milestone because they released 19 cats back into the cairngorms, all of which have got satellite tracking devices. 18 of them are still alive, still going strong, and the plan is to release more next year and the year after.
It's very reassuring, isn't it? It just gives you hope that, you know, how amazing would it be to walk in through some Caledonian forest in the cairngorms?
Yeah.
Silent, misty, and one of these beauties just scuttles across the path.
I know. It'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
It's so cool. It'd be brilliant. And I mean, when you get up close to them, you can really see the difference between a domesticated cat. And I was reading earlier as well about them.
I'm just going to move over a bit and see if I can get them to come in a bit closer there, George.
Apparently, they're impossible to tame, even if you raise them from a kitten. And you can really see the wilderness almost in their eyes, can't you?
Just the way that they prance about is so prominent. You can really see that they are definitely wild cats.
Oh, yeah. hey, come on then. Come on. Come a bit closer. Yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Superb, aren't they? So look, Cressida, first of all, I asked you for how many points out of 10 you would give the harvest mouse. The Sarvis Royale, you gave it a 10. Then it was a tawny owl and you scored it 11. How many points for the wild cat?
14.
14. You know, you're defying mathematics. Like, go on, look, one last piece. It's there, guys, there. Oh, look, you see it. Here it is. Come on. Yes.
Just gets better and better.
Look at the
The
eyes.
stalking behaviour. You can
Look
see,
at those beautiful eyes.
like you were saying earlier, you can
Come
almost
to
see
that
the
piece.
way that they're related to the way the big cats move. You can see the similarities, the way they pounce and stalk.
Even the kittens.
Yeah.
Even the kittens too.
Superb, eh? Absolutely superb. Look at them all together there now, munching away. Oh, fantastic. And of course, if you would like to see these, you can come to the British Wildlife Centre. And they give talks every day. The wildcats come out. Beats hanging around in the Scottish forest, getting freezing cold for years and only seeing a domestic moggy, which is what I've done up until now. I'm going to give them one more piece. I keep saying one more piece, but this is so joyous. Right, come on. There you go. Oh, yes. Look at that. It's not the only place you can see wildcats. We've got a film now from Luke Massey. Now, I met Luke Massey, let me think, about 10 years ago maybe. I was going to Malta to make films about the persecution of wild birds there, the illegal killing of wild birds. I needed a young cameraman. Luke volunteered. He slept in the back of the car, but he stayed up all night, I can tell you, and he did lots of fantastic filming for us. Since then he's moved to Spain and he runs a project called Wild Finca. Details are obviously in the chat, and you can go out there, meet up with Luke and his partner, stay on the finca, and they will show you wildcats because they exist in the wild in Spain too, but also bears and wolves. What about that? But he's not going to show us bears and wolves now. He's going to show us something much smaller and slimier, nothing other than the fire salamander.
Looks a bit Blair Witchy, this, and I'm probably about to stack it 'cause I'm also blinding myself in the face. But it's been a while. Welcome back to Asturias at Wild Finca. And it shouldn't be this dark because it's almost a full moon. The animal I'm looking for tonight, the creature, it's a little bit early in the year, but I saw a couple the other day. And normally it's much better when it's raining. I'm just having a little scan up the track here. Ugh. Because it's, you know, late autumn, clocks went back. Didn't get my extra hour in bed, thanks to the toddlers. They still woke up super early. They're now in bed, asleep, and I'm on the lookout for fire salamanders. Now you can see how dry it is, but here, oh, loads of chestnuts and apples. Oh no, I've lost it. They're pretty speedy when they get going. Here may be the only fire salamander of the night. I'm going to try and hey little dude. It's actually quite a small one. Here's my, oh god, here's my hand in comparison. Oh, I'm clearly rusty on my camera skills. Apologies. I actually sold all my camera gear to buy more land at Wildfinker, so I'm filming this all on my phone. But here is, I'm not going to touch it because they do secrete a venom. The yellow stripe's a little bit of a warning. He's going to head off. But yeah, super duper cool. And I'm sure over the next few weeks, once we get rainy evenings, we're going to see a lot more of these. But for now, here's just one of them. So it seems, because it's pretty dry tonight, no rain at all, that's the only one we're going to find. But luckily I found one for you. And yeah, maybe next time it won't look so much like some kind of dodgy, low-budget horror film. Ooh.
Oh, Luke, I don't know about that. I quite like the budget horror show kind of thing, lurking around there in the darkness. But to come across a fire salamander, I mean, that has got to be one of the most beautiful animals on the planet, and I'm quite envious that it's made its home near you at Wildfinker. If you want to know more about Luke's incredible work, you can visit Wildfinker on Instagram, give him a follow. He also has some amazing tours where you can see lots of different things, wolves, bears, fire salamanders. So make sure to check that out. I highly recommend it because it's such a beautiful part of the world to really go and explore and relax and connect to nature. All the links to his bios and everything will be in the chat, so make sure you click that now. Now, of course, I'm sat here at the British Wildlife Centre. Fantastic place. We've been treated to lots of live animals over the course of the week. Wildcats obviously have to be right at the top. But it has a bit of a tin roof, and you've heard when the rain comes, it is really loud, and we are predicted a lot more wind over the next day or two as Storm Ciarán takes hold. Up to 90 miles per hour winds could come into various parts of southern England. And it seems to me over the last month or so, there's been a lot of severe weather warnings, a lot of severe storms. I myself had to leave Scotland a few days early because it looked like we might get trapped in by the floods, and I had to get south for work purposes. And I rang my mum, and she was in 25-degree weather, wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt and having a barbecue in the garden whilst it was freezing cold and raining and flooding up in Scotland. And I think that was one of the first times, I mean, I know about climate change, I know about biodiversity loss, but that was one of the first times that it really hit home for me how much it's here. It really is on our doorstep. And we need to understand how climate change works, so we're better able to mitigate ourselves against the impacts of it. Now, today is a very special day because it is the 30th anniversary of one of the longest running climate change studies anywhere in the world. It's the only one of its kind, but it is sadly under threat. To find out a little bit more about this, I met up with my old lecturer at the University of Liverpool, Dr. Raj Whitlock, to find out a little bit more about what's happening over at the Buxton Climate Change Impact Lab. Climate change is something that affects us all, or it certainly will do as time goes on. So it's so critical that we understand more about how it's going to impact our lives, but also the habitats around us and the species that live within it. So today I've come down to Buxton Climate Change Impacts Lab to meet up with my old lecturer, Dr. Raj Whitlock, to find out about the longest running climate change study anywhere in the world. It really is a special place. Raj, it's mid-October, we've stood here, the sun is shining, and personally I feel quite warm, and that's probably quite apt considering we've come here to this really important climate change study site.
Yeah, that climate change context is really why we're here at the Buxton Climate Change Impacts Lab. So what we're seeking to do here is to understand how real semi-natural grasslands will respond to climate change, to be able to predict their responses in the future. So we need to know that because grasslands are incredibly important to us. Not only do they harbour many species of what are often rare and declining plants and animals, but they also provide us with pollination services, they can store carbon, and they're wonderful places to relax and reconnect with nature.
Right, well, I can see there's lots of really cool technology behind me. My curiosity is getting the best of me. Should we go and have a little look around and see what's going on here?
Absolutely, yeah. So this treatment is a drought treatment. Here we're using automated rain shelters to create a drought over the grassland during July and August each year. Beyond that, we have a winter warming treatment where we use heating cables to warm the soil surface 3 degrees above ambient. We also have a watering treatment and controls to compare the results in the treatments to that.
So essentially you've got all these different squares and they're all subjected to different climatic conditions, just to see how therefore they might respond as our climate naturally continues to change.
Exactly. So from this experiment, we conclude quite strongly that the experimental treatments that we're exposing the grassland to are what's causing change.
The fact that this project has been running for 30 years is a phenomenal achievement to everybody who's been involved. But time is critical right now, because as the climate crisis continues to tighten its grip, we really need to understand how it's going to impact these habitats and all the sensitive biodiversity that lives within them. By having long-term data, I know it doesn't always sound exciting, data, all of this kind of stuff, but it enables us to protect ourselves against what's to come. We can only protect ourselves if we know how climate change is going to impact these places and exactly what we can do about it. This is why the Buxton Climate Change Impact Lab is so critical, not only to the future of grasslands, but to the future of understanding climate change. You know, we've lost over 95% of our native grasslands here in the UK. It's such a vital habitat, as Raj explained, for so many different reasons. And we have to understand how climate change is going to impact these habitats so that we can protect not only them, but the wildlife and, of course, the humans that rely on it. We can't go into the climate crisis and biodiversity crisis blind. We simply can't afford to do that. This isn't a fight we can afford to lose. And this is why long-term monitoring like this at the Buxton Climate Impact Lab is so critical, because we can better understand and predict how things might change. But that project is under threat. The funding potentially might be cut, and this is why we're asking for your help. There has been a Just Giving page that has started up, and if you have anything, any pounds will do. It will all go towards a really vital project. The link is in the chat if you would like to contribute. And also share the news, share with your friends, share with your neighbour, anyone you can, because the more we can understand about this, as I said, the better prepared we will be. Now, of course, we love getting up close and personal to the wildlife here at the British Wildlife Centre, and there's no one more equipped to do that than James Stevens, who's our wonderful wildlife camera operator. So hello, James.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good day?
It's been a very busy day. Do you know what? Fabian Harrison, our live producer, challenged me with finding animals that are agile, which is quite difficult because most of the animals here you'd probably say are agile.
They're quite a lot of like small rodents and mammals and things
Exactly.
that bounce and run about.
Exactly. And the first one that I went to go and see were the red squirrels. Now, I went there earlier hoping to catch their agility in action. So I caught them here climbing around, bundling around, climbing up this branch.
Well, that's quite agile.
That's
I couldn't
quite
do
agile,
that.
but what are they looking for? Oh, it's this massive store of food that's left out for them. And do you know what? For about 2 hours, all they were doing was eating, eating, eating. I really wanted to catch them jumping, but no, I just got them eating. So sadly, on that front, I failed.
So they're kind of squirrels of luxury, really.
Exactly, the ones
Really?
here definitely are.
Well, that's not a bad life, is it, for a squirrel, I guess?
Easy, nice and easy. But I did want to show you some jumping squirrels. So I've got some archive that I filmed earlier in the year of these squirrels up in the Cairngorms. You can see them running down the tree, which is quite unique, you know. Being able to run up and down the tree is quite special. They've got incredibly sharp claws. In fact, their hind legs can rotate 180 degrees so they can climb down. And look at that, jumping in the air. They can actually twist and turn right in the air. They can shift their centre of gravity to change the angle of which they land. Absolutely incredible to see them jumping just like this.
Quite special,
Gorgeous
isn't it?
animals.
Because they're hypermobile, aren't they, in their wrists? So when they jump, they're able to detect exactly the angles at which their joints are going to need to prepare themselves upon impact of landing.
Yeah.
Just so cool.
I'd love to be able to jump like a squirrel.
Yeah,
Pretty
not that
impressive.
flexible anymore, unfortunately.
Pretty impressive.
Very nice
Now,
animals.
the next animal that I went to go and see was the pine marten, which is a predator of the red squirrel. And these are equally agile. They're long, slender, slim bodies where they can skulk around in this arboreal habitat. And you can see there the long tail. Now, that long tail is important for when they're trying to navigate over thin branches. You can see how thin that branch is, and it's just walking over it like it's just concrete, you know. Absolutely incredible. Now their claws are incredibly sharp, but they're semi-retractable, which is important because as much time as they spend in the trees, they also spend on the ground. And in fact, 80% of the food that they catch is caught on the ground. You can see their claws there, incredibly sharp, incredible animals, and indeed an incredible animal, yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
They really are beautiful. They're really incredible.
Really incredible.
Really
We're obviously really lucky that we get them in our garden, which is quite nice.
Also, not regularly though. We try, you know, we get a couple of eggs, sometimes a little bit of peanut butter, but they're really hard to kind of entice in all the time.
Yeah, I wish they come regularly, but
yeah, but it's still nice. 75% of the population, of course, up in Scotland, but they are becoming more frequent down south. You know, there's some now in the New Forest.
yeah, it's quite exciting.
I haven't seen them down here yet.
Yeah, very exciting. And actually, what's interesting is that they do hunt the red squirrels, but they're actually beneficial to red squirrels. So down in Wales, where one of the reintroductions took place, they were finding that they were benefiting the red squirrels. So what the pine martens were doing is that they were hunting all of the greys, which is a competitor for the reds. They give them, you know, squirrel pox, which isn't great. But because the greys are bigger, they're about double the size of a red squirrel, and they spend a lot more time on the ground than the reds do, the pine martens just found them a much easier meal. So as the greys went down, the red squirrels went up. So it just goes to show that having a predator back in the ecosystem can benefit all sorts of species.
Absolutely, absolutely can do.
Now, there's one more animal that I want to show you now. I didn't film this whilst I was wasting my time on the red squirrels eating. Our cameraman, Henry Tamlin, caught this lovely footage. Now, these are our Scottish wildcats that we just saw live, and these are the kittens. Now, they're exploring their habitat, testing out their skills, just experimenting with what's around them, and of course they are fighting. Look at that.
Wait, I mean that's just like tigers in miniature.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this looks like a lot of fun, and I'm sure for them it probably is fun, but it is forming a function. Now all of this play is teaching them how to hunt. You can see just the way they kind of scratch each other. They even bite each other in the neck and the throat, which is, you know, important for when they're trying to take down their prey. So all of this play, all of this fun is actually teaching them to grow into adult wildcats that are effective hunters fully in the wild.
Well, it's all about social bonding, isn't it, as well? You know, you've got to play with your siblings, you've got to know how far to push the limits and then how far to pull it back again. And every time I've walked past the Scottish wildcats, they've always been play fighting or up to some sort of mischief. But, you know, I'm sure it's not the last we're going to see of them tonight.
No, I'm sure it's not. Now, okay, hypothetical question.
Okay,
if you could be one of those animals for a day, which would you choose?
I'm not sure. I'm not a feline person. I like the Scottish wildcats, but they're not like, they don't, you know, I like them. You know, they're nice. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not sure I'd be a very good pine marten.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be a red squirrel.
Funny enough, I'd be a red squirrel, but for different reasons, because they can jump over 2 meters, which for, like you said earlier, for their body size is an incredible distance. Now, that feeling of jumping through the air, almost like they're flying, that's the experience that I want to have.
Yeah, that'd be quite nice, isn't it? Imagine that, flying through the air, your ear tufts in the wind.
But the Scottish wildcats does look like a lot of fun, play fighting.
Yeah, but then you grow up and you spend a lot of time on your own. I don't know, maybe.
Speaking of wildcats, I better go back and try and film them, so I'll see you later.
Okay, we'll see you later. We'll see more of James's shots later on in the programme as he brings them to us live again a little bit later on. Now, from some beautiful up-close photography of all the animals here at the British Wildlife Centre to a fantastic photographer, an award-winning photographer who really challenges her creative eye to get photos that you wouldn't normally see. I'm of course talking about the wonderful Rachel Bixby.
I'm Rachel Bixby, a self-taught wildlife photographer, and this is the story of my wild life. From my youngest age, my late grandfather, a keen naturalist and avid fisherman, influenced my life with his passion for nature. He often took me bird watching, sharing his incredible knowledge with me. And when he passed on, I continued on my ornithological journey using his very binoculars. I have always been creative, and in my late teens, I began to look for an art form to capture the emotions I felt for the natural world. At first, I would paint, but then I discovered photography, and my life changed forever. One day, whilst photographing the sunset at my local beach, an unfamiliar bird caught my eye. Now, the bird was a northern fulmar, a relative of the albatross, and upon hearing this connection to one of my bucket list animals, my fixation for seabirds really began. I spent a year documenting this formidable seabird on my doorstep, and with each passing day, my interest in seabirds blossomed until I ventured beyond the fulmar to explore gannets, auks, shearwaters, and other wildlife. Now, since this life-changing moment, my relationship with photography has grown dramatically, and I've watched myself transition from a hobbyist to a professional, whilst teaching myself everything that I know now through trial and error. And the most rewarding part of that process has been the evolution of my eye, of my creative flair, and most importantly, my understanding of this art form. Within my work, I look to capture the natural artistry that can be found within our natural world. I'm searching for unique ways to photograph the interplay between animal and environment that encapsulates simple beauty or complex artistry by utilising the elements around me to create images that are one of a kind and yet remain true to nature. To capture this intention in a photograph takes a lot of patience, a lot of field research, and a lot of experimentation with techniques that allow me to break the creative boundaries of traditional wildlife photography. Nature can often overwhelm us with its beauty and distraction, which is why I sometimes like to make a creative decision to overexpose my image in camera to bring into focus a certain colour or symmetry that can be easily overlooked. Similarly, I have developed a passion for black and white photography, for it really helps to remove any distractions caused by colour to spotlight the textures in nature that often go unseen when blinded by the brightly coloured bill of a puffin. I also find that a monochrome palette helps me to translate and amplify the natural shapes and symmetries that I see with my naked eye into an image. When I began my journey into wildlife photography, I believed that the closer to my subject I was, the better. But with time, I've learnt that sometimes placing an animal within its environment can be the most effective approach of all. It is no secret that the environments these wild species live in can be unforgiving. And by providing a sense of scale, I can convey a mixture of feelings from strength to fragility, or perhaps just illustrate the breathtaking beauty of a landscape with an animal in it. I spend a large amount of my time in the field understanding the subject before I photograph it, which not only allows me to better predict the behaviours I wish to capture, but it also grants me an opportunity to notice the details that I feel are iconic to that species. What makes a photograph special to me is having the ability to take several uncontrollable factors and marry them together in a way that creates an image with a unique approach to a truly natural element that very few see a creative potential in. And with this image, and by using my camera as a storytelling tool, it's my mission to connect a global audience to new species with fresh, captivating photographs which spark a newfound love or interest in a species, perhaps even empowering change and conservation later down the line. After all, how can you protect something that you don't love?
Rachel really has some artistry with her work. She sees things in kind of a landscape and wildlife that nobody else sees. She's able to pick up on the detail and show it in a way that actually hasn't been seen before, which is a real talent.
Yeah, no, she takes remarkable photographs. They're very beautiful. They're perfectly composed. She thinks about all of the elements of that composition. Every pixel counts. That's what I really like about them. And very often I see people and they photograph opportunities, but they don't actually take the photo. They photograph the opportunity. But she hones in on the actual photograph. This is one more of hers, which I'd like to show you. This is one she calls Odin, the Norse god. Obviously, it's a polar bear. I like this portrait a lot. I think it's the best portrait of a polar bear I've ever seen. It's peering down the lens. It's got the blood on top of its nose. It's been in the grisly business of killing and eating. It's a very, very powerful portrait.
It's quite something, isn't it? You can feel the intensity of its eyes there. It's really, really stunning, and obviously hard to get pictures, new pictures of something that's so well photographed like a polar bear. And it's even harder actually to get really good photos of things on the small macro scale.
Macro scale, but Matt Doog is a friend of ours and he takes photographs of the macro. So he's doing artistic photographs but of very tiny things, as you say, quite challenging. Let's take a look at one of his now. This is, look, a caterpillar that's curled around the top of a stem and the flower is top lit. So, I mean, it's fantastic,
You would
isn't it?
never think to take a photograph like that. Like, I would not, in my wildest dreams, imagine that that was the image I was going to take and then go out and seek it. Like,
I know.
my creativity has its limits. Like, it's stunning.
Technically it's good because the larvae is obviously pin sharp, but the stalk and the rest of the flower are out of focus, and it looks like it's in some sort of, you know, nebula, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, another one, we've got this one here. This is a bee, look, peeping around the edge of a rose.
You like a peeping animal?
I like peeping animals, I like that indeed, but normally you see like peeping wolves, peeping bears. I've done a few peeping foxes myself, here at the British Wildlife Centre actually. But look at this little bee peeping around that rose. I'll tell you what, I like this photo so much, I've got it on my wall in my office.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Go on, out of 10 then.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
Oh, you know I'm ruthless.
I know, I think the most I've got is maybe like a 4.
Yeah, maximum 4. I'm going to give Matt about 6.8 for that one. I mean, I don't know, to be quite honest with you, I don't know how it could be better, but...
So why wouldn't you go higher?
Okay, 7.
So just
7.2.
being
7.2. 7.2 for
Matt,
Matt.
ignore him, it's a 10 out of 10. He
Fantastic.
knows nothing about photography, or bees for that matter, so don't worry. Just kidding.
Such a long way down if you were to topple off the bales, isn't it, Beast? Now, the rain started up, yes, you can hear here, but fortunately earlier today, Cressida had a great opportunity to go and meet one of the foxes that's living here at the British Wildlife Centre called Basil, and she had quite a great time. Look at this.
Hi, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. What are you up to this morning then?
Just preparing a bit of food for the foxes. We've got some dog biscuit in the bowl there, chopping up a little bit of chicken. We might just need that initially to cool him out. So if you're interested, we'll go and meet Basil.
I'd love to.
Okay. After you.
Thank you. There he is. Wow, look at him.
Here he comes. Just takes him a little bit of time to get used to new people, but not too bad.
How old is he?
He's about 9 years old now.
Wow, I've never been this close. Oh, so cute. In the wild, what do they usually eat?
Well, out in the wild, they'll eat pretty much anything. They're so adaptable. They'll scavenge things off the streets in the towns and cities, rummage through people's bins occasionally. And then in a more rural setting, occasionally they'll take rats, rabbits.
Rabbits?
But then fruits and berries as well, invertebrates. So a nice mix. They're very
Sounds
adaptable.
quite balanced.
Yeah,
Balanced diet. How do you differentiate between the males and the females?
Generally speaking, the males will be a little bit larger. Not always as obvious to tell just from looking at them, but normally they would be. But then if you look at their heads and their faces, the males will have that broader face and muzzle, whereas the females tend to be a little bit more dainty and sleeker.
I've noticed that in urban environments, their nose is a bit more pointier.
Yeah.
I guess that's because they've adapted to their environment.
Yeah, I mean, they are extremely adaptable animals. A lot of people now think that that's a result of an urban setting for them, and they think foxes are beginning to get a little bit more of a longer, slender nose in urban settings to be able to, of all things, get into tin cans for when they're scavenging and foraging.
That makes sense. How beautiful is that, how foxes, and most animals in fact, can just adapt to their environments, right?
It's amazing, isn't it? You think what we put them through, and they are so adaptable. The foxes being arguably the most adaptable of the animals we have in this country. You'll find them in all the habitats that we have in the UK.
I know that for sure because I've got my local fox that I often see.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's so friendly too. He just chills out, and I see him regularly, probably every day in fact, just on a piece of grassland, just relaxing.
And that's great, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those animals that you can see in an urban setting as well. One of the few, perhaps, that you can see in an urban setting.
Licking his lips, he had a nice little treat. Basil brush.
Basil brush.
The pure, simplistic joy on Cressida's face, getting that interaction with Basil the fox, made my day. I felt like I was there with her, kind of engaging with the animal, and you really get to know them and hear them that little bit more. It's really cool.
That's the sound of foxes calling. Just about hear it over the driving rain on the roof here. But that's the sound of foxes that you'll hear increasingly at this time of year. As we move through towards Christmas, they're becoming increasingly vocal. It's their mating season, and those are the sorts of noises that they make. But Beast, hey, what do you think of my new woodland speaker by Pure Audio? Hey, look at that.
Yeah, you're very happy with that. Do you know what? I quite like it as well. It's
Really?
quite durable.
You don't like it that much because it's mine, and it's not heading in your direction.
We shall see about
Look at that. Sound quality's really good. It's got a DAB and FM radio on it, actually, which you'll need to turn up quite loud if it's raining this hard, of course, if you're trying to listen to it. If you go onto their website, details are in the chat at the moment. There's a competition. You have to guess the bird songs. If you get it right, you get put into a weekly draw where you can win one of these speakers, or the overall prize draw would mean that you get a chance to win 8 of these speakers, all of them, great range of stuff that they've got on there. Furthermore, if you get one of these before Christmas, all of the profits go to the Woodland Trust, which is pretty good.
That's very good. Our decibel levels have to go up because the rain is just hammering down in here.
We should be shouting through the pure Woodland speaker.
Shouting through it.
Turn it right up, to be quite honest with you.
It's quite useful, quite useful. And also, I know it's quite superficial, but I really like the colour of it.
Yeah, the colour's
smart
gorgeous,
looking as well, isn't it?
Very
It's simple
nice.
design.
Yeah, very nice indeed.
All right,
yeah.
okay. Well, as you know, throughout the course of 8 out of 10 bats, we've been talking about campaigns and things environmentally that we are really passionate about, and we call it our soapbox. And today, hosting the soapbox is our wonderful George.
Now, we're all made of stardust, but what exactly does that mean? Well, we have to go back in time, back before World War II, back before the Romans, back before Coronation Street, all the way back 13 billion years to the Big Bang. Now, obviously, we don't know exactly what happened to create the universe because we don't have a TARDIS, but the most supported theory is the fact that all matter was generated from a single point, and this is supported by the fact that when we look into the night sky, all the galaxies are moving away from us, which would say that likely at one time they were closer to us. Now, once this matter is generated by the Big Bang, it accumulates into what's known as a nebula, which is basically just a swirling ball of stuff. And once gravity takes hold of that, it starts to pull the matter inwards, that's then heated to form the sun. All the other matter then rotates and spins around it, orbits it, until gravity takes hold of them and starts to pull them into what's known as a planetesimal, which is basically just a posh word for a baby planet, one of which is the Earth. And then 4.5 billion years later, a Mars-sized planet collides into Earth, and the debris from that explosion creates the moon. Now, the Earth at this time wouldn't have been a very nice place to live, seeing as it was a ball of molten lava with no atmosphere, basically a nightclub on a Wednesday night. But soon after, we start to see life. Now, it may have started as an algae-like organism, but it quickly evolved into bacteria, then fish, until they got bored and decided to evolve into reptiles and move onto the land. These reptiles then evolved into birds, mammals, one of which is the Astrophilis pithecus afarensis, which is incredibly hard to say. It was basically a chimpanzee. This soon evolved into the Homo habilis, which is significant because it's easier to say. And then something really, really big happened 2.6 million years ago. And it's something big, and I mean, man used tools. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but for me, I think this is bigger and more dangerous than the first testing of the atomic bomb, because this is when we start to get clever. This is a turning point from when we were just like any other species to us becoming the dominant species on the planet. Suddenly, we could hunt better, build better, evolve quicker. Life suddenly wasn't about survival. It was about quality of life, luxuries, about business and power, and more importantly, it was about greed. Now, where am I going with this? I want you to take a look back at the last 13 billion years. What do you see? It's different for everyone. I see how fortunate we are. How fortunate we are that the Big Bang happened. How fortunate are we that gravity is a thing. How fortunate are we that the sun continues to burn at exactly the right distance to sustain life. And what do we do with that luck? What do we do with that blessing that we have been given? We give this planet more pain than it has seen by any other organism in 4.5 billion years. Now, there's no good me just standing here ranting. What can we do? And I'm happy to say that the ball is already rolling. More than ever, people are starting to look to the Earth and really appreciate it and take action in protecting it, whether that's being vegan, cutting meat out on weekdays, or even just simply signing a petition. every positive action is just that. It's positive. I mean, look at me, I'm being all happy. Ain't gonna last. Because whilst we all make sacrifices, world leaders still continue to put profit before the planet. An increase in the economy, in their eyes, is well worth an increase in temperature. Well, what do you expect if you put billionaires in power? But we've got to fight. Fight for us, fight for our future, and fight for this planet. It's cliche, I know. Us environmentalists have been banging on about it for years. But there simply is no other option. There is no plan B, no planet B. This is, as far as we know, is the only planet that can sustain life. If we don't have this, well, you don't need me to say it. But the worst part about it all is we will burn our home and it will be us who are holding the matches. I'm sorry that was very depressing, but next up we have a great film by Nadia, all about the Right to Roam campaign. Take it away.
My name is Nadia Sheikh. I'm a naturalist, ornithologist, lover of all things wildlife, and I also campaign for the Right to Roam campaign. And so I spent many years working in nature conservation. But what I found really difficult, which came to light really early on in my career, I guess, is there's just not enough people connecting to nature and not enough people caring about it. We in England have access to less than 8% of land. So our population of humans cannot explore the countryside freely. It comes with a set of, I guess, really a lot of restrictions. You can't sleep under the stars. You can barely swim in its rivers. The way that you can explore the countryside is just through a set of really set paths that, just like ants, we are channeled through the countryside. And so I began to ask questions around, God, why have we got such limited access? Over the hundreds of years, we've had increased enclosures, people being removed from the countryside and increasingly pushed into urban areas. So it's no wonder that there is a massive disconnection from nature and a loss of the language of our kin. When I came to realise that there is this vast population of people who don't know the beautiful haunting sound of the nightjar, or haven't been uplifted by nightingale, or haven't watched a flock of waders on the beach and sandling running in and out of the shoreline, I guess it's no wonder that we are kind of allowing biodiversity to decline, because most people don't really know about wildlife. It's in knowing blackbirds and oak trees and otter that I know that I have a sense of belonging in this country. I feel comfortable in the world around me because I know it's wildlife, and it brings me a deep sadness that the majority of people don't have that relationship, and it is because we have a culture of disconnection. We have a culture of disconnection which has been absolutely orchestrated. This is a movement about reconnecting people to nature, rightfully where they belong, and not just about more places to walk. This is about engendering a culture where every child is born knowing that they belong, knowing that this is their land, and then they have an agency and a responsibility to protect buzzards, blue tits, otters, salmon, and have a deep relationship with nature that we simply do not have. When we are not witnessing their decline, it's less likely that we'll stand up and protect it. If you care about wildlife in this country, there's very little you can do other than give money to a charity to do something for you. The idea that we all have collective ownership for the countryside is lost, and that is because we have such limited access to wildlife. We've got so used to culturally not having access to places that we just kind of accept it. And the Right to Roam campaign is really, really challenging that embedded culture of, oh, I don't belong there, or there's a fence, or there's a gate and it says no trespassers. And to kind of remove this myth, this really bizarre thing that we've got where we just kind of accept the few crumbs that we've got of 8%. And it's not a lot. But actually, by fundamentally removing people's right to access the land that we're from, is not the solution. So in perpetuity, separating humans from nature in order to protect it is not going to be the solution. It never is, especially when we understand that in order to save nature, we need more people to connect to it in order to defend it and have a voice for it. I want the right to roam because I want more people to access nature. We have in England some of the worst nature connectedness in the world, but we also have some of the worst biodiversity in the world. These things are absolutely connected. The Right to Roam campaign is advocating for a responsible access to nature, an increased education around how do we not disturb birds and wildlife, not have fires that get out of control, but just increasing the amount of people who are getting to know nature intimately, like we have, like presumably you have as well, and can stand up and be an extra voice.
Message from Nadia there, and I know Nadia really well. She adores nature. She's a proper nature nerd, naturalist. Not only that, she's obviously campaigning for the right to roam because, like a lot of us are starting to, I think we understand that in order to get people to care for nature, we have to connect them to it. And when you're excluded from large parts of the land that you live in, you're not going to learn to care for nature. You're not going to be familiar with the blackbird's song or the sparrows or the blue tits or the butterflies. So there's got to be something that's going to have to change. It's really, really important. Brilliant message from Nadia there. What do you think about the right to roam, Chrissy?
Just like Nadia said, only 8% of the land in England like we can explore. So how do you expect people to actually get out there and feel that connection, as you say?
Yeah.
And it just feels like, you know, sometimes I know some young people that their parents have said to me, them going on their Duke of Edinburgh, being yelled at, has completely deterred them from wanting to go outdoors again.
It's mad, isn't it? I mean, the Duke of Edinburgh Award is to get kids outside. So this is teenagers, 13, 14. They're learning how to use a compass and a map, which is tricky. So of course you're going to make mistakes and go wrong, but you know, if they then get shouted at, you could see how that would put you off.
Yeah, no, honestly, and sometimes you got people even saying like the hard to reach groups.
Yeah.
But how do you expect to reach these people if you ain't going to where they are?
Yeah.
And meeting them halfway even.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of almost insulting to call people hard to reach, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, some organisations are doing it well, aren't they?
Yeah, no, definitely. London Wildlife Trust are doing some amazing stuff there.
Yeah.
They've got some traineeships and mentorships where they're actually paying young people aged 16 to 25 to be involved in getting to know the outside, the world around us, conservation work, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Paid.
That's the key word, paid, isn't it? Because, you know, it's all good and well volunteering for an hour a week, but this isn't what people are asking for with unpaid internships. It's 3 months, 6 months, a year without getting any money. Like, not a lot of people can afford to fund themselves for that long.
Definitely not, especially people from working class backgrounds.
Yeah.
That, you know, this really invites them into the nature kind of world and know that they can actually do this type of job, not just be passionate about it. It can be something that they're doing every day.
And set them up for success as well. I mean, we've seen some great people coming out of those traineeships, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. We've got like Lyra, for instance.
Yes.
She has an amazing Instagram account where she calls herself David Attenborough of Croydon.
Yeah, you've got to follow Lyra.
And Chantal, of course, she is the wildlife presenter for CBeebies, and they're both amazing.
Yeah, they're fantastic, aren't they? I adore them. But there was another organisation that supported you, wasn't there?
Yeah, so the British Exploring Society, that's where my journey kind of began. And I am actually their first young ambassador after 93 years.
Wow.
In fact, it really helps to change that, you know, that kind of narrative of the white middle class male being the typical explorer. And it's really enabled like more young people to go on expeditions.
Yeah, which is, you know, it's life-changing. When you hear the word explorer in a storybook, you picture an older bloke with, you know, sticks going up a mountain or going to Antarctica, don't you? So it's really good that they've proactively taken that. And then they funded you to go on your own expedition, didn't they?
Yeah, no, so I got some sponsorship and I was able to go on this expedition to the Peruvian Amazon.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was life-changing and saw some amazing things there. Which included like
some
loads
cool
of cool, yeah.
Oh, I am so jealous. I'm so jealous. I mean, that spider on the left, I only found out that existed last week. But there it is, and you saw it.
Yeah, it froze its web kind of thing. And, you know, like even the smaller things that I guess I used to be swatting, I'm now wanting to protect. Now in my family, they're always like saying I'm like the protector of the insects. Like, since coming back from my expedition, I really do appreciate like wildlife and the things around me differently.
I suppose when you see a millipede or a centipede that big as well, it's kind of puts into perspective how small the creepy crawlies are here.
Yeah, and you just get to learn to appreciate the beauty of them because there, you know, tropical and stuff, you actually get to see up close something completely different to what you're seeing here, and then you realise they're actually the same thing, just in different locations.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not in any way too dramatic to say that experiences like that are life-changing, aren't they?
They definitely are, and it just takes one person, I guess, to just change trajectories of many people too.
Because you work with young people, don't you? Young children on your camps.
Yeah. So like with that, even just them having the first time bird watching, just even simple things like catching moths, and you just see the joy in their faces.
Yeah. I like to think of it as like a gift, like not one that's wrapped up at Christmas in wrapping paper, but a gift that is an experience or some knowledge or a piece of information that you can see, like you said, it lights up someone. I've had so many people do that to me, and now you're doing it to other people as well, aren't you?
Honestly, and there's so many other groups and people doing amazing stuff too, like Black Girls Hike, Sustainably Muslim, Black Scottish Adventurers Flock Together, Steppers UK, Jungly Joggers, and Wanderers of Colours. There's like so many more as well that I haven't mentioned.
So many.
You know, having that space to just be yourself and be with others is really grounding, I think, for a lot of people that don't feel welcome in these types of spaces.
Yeah, it's just brilliant to see because, as we said before, this is a joy that you and I share. It's a joy that you share that are watching this. We all love nature, and surely we just want as many people as possible to love it. So it's, brilliant work, Kezia. What would be your takeaway message from this?
For me, it's all about the intergenerational kind of breaking the kind of things that are happening. It takes one generation to disconnect, but it also takes one generation to reconnect, and that's what I'm trying to do also with my son there, Zuri.
Zuri is
getting out into nature.
Adorable. Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Chrissy. It's really, really good to chat about. Now we're going to go onto a film that has been narrated by Lindsay Chapman. Now this is just a really nice, peaceful exploration of a Highland river in autumn.
It's early autumn, and the green hues of this Highland river are starting to change. The water might be getting colder, but for a dipper, this isn't a problem. Their dense, oily feathers insulate them against the icy water as they search for aquatic invertebrates and small fish. After travelling all the way from the ocean, these adult salmon are journeying upstream to spawn. But to get there, they must navigate the rougher sections of the river. These powerful swimmers can propel themselves to jump over 3 meters out of the water. When they reach their spawning grounds, the female digs into the riverbed to form a nest called a redd. Guarded by the male, the female releases her eggs for him to fertilise, although other males manage to sneak in too. In the gentle corners of the river, this female kingfisher is making the most of the fading light. For now, she has this section all to herself, but soon she may be joined by European migrants. The days may be shortening, but the river stays busy through the night. A cloud of bats gather to feed on the many insects flying around. This congregation is made up of different species, including pipistrelles swooping through the trees and daubenton's gliding over the water. Using echolocation, they accurately and effectively catch their prey. They can eat thousands of insects in a single night. Before the harsh winter comes, they must feed constantly to get enough weight to survive hibernation. Rivers go through harsh changes with the seasons, but throughout the year, they remain vibrant and full of life.
Do you know, sometimes you really just need to take a breather and enjoy the nature around you. And I love going to the river. That was beautiful, wasn't it?
It was, and there's just nothing better than immersing yourself in nature. I mean, I don't know what you were saying about heavy rain and torrential rain. I mean, I was stood 3 foot over there, completely dry. I mean, it must have been an isolated shower because I've got no clue what she's talking about. Rain. I could see Orion and the moon and everything. It was clear as anything, honestly.
George,
not a clue.
What planet?
I think she's lying.
What planet are you on?
Well, Earth. I think you're on a different parallel universe.
Highly
heavy
likely.
rain.
It is highly likely. Now, of course, James Stephens is out filming the Wildcats, and we have some live footage coming in of them. Oh,
look at that.
That is a soggy Wildcat, George. What are you talking about? No rain.
It was it was 2 isolated showers. I was in the middle. Yeah.
It's a beautiful animal, isn't it? And of course, sometimes, if you're lucky enough to live in the northern parts of Scotland, sometimes people say, oh, I've seen a wildcat, and it actually happens to be a domestic cat more often than not. But there is a way of telling them apart, isn't there?
There is, yeah. So they do look quite similar, but there's a few distinguishing features. Well, firstly, wildcats are around about 25% bigger than a domesticated cat. As well as this tail is a lot thicker, it's a bit blunter at the end, it's got a large sort of black blob, let's just say, on the end of the tail. And they're also a lot more striped, and they have less spots. And also, just look at their eyes. You can see the wilderness, the pure soul of the wild in their eyes.
The eyes are so piercing. I love how they're just, as you say, they look much bigger as well in terms
bulkier.
of as we saw earlier, just the way
Absolutely.
they prance and move around. You can tell that they're wild cats.
Wild at heart. That one there was
Very.
just looking down the camera lens like, I see you, I'm looking into your soul as we speak. Beautiful animals though, and to watch them play like we did earlier. And you guys got to hang out with them live, which was really cool as well, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
It was absolutely incredible. And now, on to Skull of the Day.
Tricky. Well, I would say tricky one, wasn't it?
Anyway, look at that. Absolute beauty. Now, you can see the general kind of streamline shape there. So I'm going to say maybe something that's an aquatic species, something that lives close to the water. A bit of a clue here as well, they nest in colonies with other species. However, this species likes to nest closer to the bottom of a cliff. And an even bigger clue for you, it is a medium-sized auk. It is, of course, the razorbill, quite similar looking to the guillemot, and beautiful species, always a treat to see a razorbill. And I mean, you can see just the detail, that lovely white line on the edge of the beak there. Quite a distinguishing feature when you see a razorbill, when you see a live razorbill in the wild.
Yeah. Or if
What
you're
a
very
beauty.
good at preserving the skull, then you've still got that.
Absolutely. I
on
mean,
there.
I've got no clue whose skull this is, but they're clearly very, very good at taking care of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Stunning
it is a-
The lengths I have to go to protect my own skull.
What is your issue? You could just come sit here and join us, you know, you don't have to make it all dramatic.
Oh, what's dramatic? I'm trying to recover my skull.
There's nothing wrong with your skull, it's been perfectly looked after. Very capable hands of George Quezia and I.
I think I've just worked out the Bigfoot mystery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just Chris lurking in the bushes.
Yeah.
Okay, I might do the rest of the show in camouflage. I'm so embarrassed by the way you've been treating my skulls. At the top of the programme, we were very lucky that Judy Dench set word of the day. It was Scythuism. Scythuism. Now, let's hear from Judy to see what that meant.
Scythuism. That's a word that means rustling in leaves, like the wonderful sound of wind in trees. Good word. Scythuism.
Scythuism. Scythuism, yes, that beautiful sound of the wind blowing through the leaves on the trees. Now, very sadly, tonight it's going to be blowing through the leaves on the trees with terrific force here in the south of England. You've already heard the rain beating down on the roof. Storm Kieran is arriving here. Hope you're all going to be safe. Make sure you keep your animals indoors. We're expecting wind speeds of up to 95 miles an hour in some places, 70 miles an hour inland. It's going to be a quite dangerous thing. No journeys unless they're entirely necessary is what we're advocating. Anyway, who's the winner? Dawn Hughes was the first person. So Dawn Hughes wins the coveted 8 out of 10 bats.
Lucky
mug.
Dawn.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, remember that was the first one that we saw, was Dawn. And of course, there's, look, the pin badge there, look. There's the little pin badge, the little mini badge. So there are just a couple of hundred of these left now. If you would like one of these, not this size, they'll be bigger. This was just a test one. Then the details are in the chat. You can get yourself one of those. We've been running out of time tonight because we got carried away with our live wild cats, but we think it was worth it.
It was definitely worth it.
I can't take you seriously in that.
So very sadly, we're not going to show you Adam Syme's film about his bird feeding experiments, which had won him a Junior Scientist Prize. But Adam, rest assured, it will be on tomorrow's 8 out of 10 bats.
It is a brilliant clip. Make sure to tune in.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's really good.
Honestly, it's so good.
Okay. Now, the rest of the programmes, well, in week 1 we were leaving the programme with a joke. They were never funny, so we cancelled that. Then we've gone for a bit of poetry and prose, and we had some very poignant poetry and prose over the last couple of days, it's got to be said. But we now thought we'd leave you with some music. Yes, so the Lonesome Dead, who are a garage rock band in Sheffield, sent us this song a little while ago. It's called Devil Birds. Devil birds being swifts, of course, a species of which we've got a great deal of concern. But we thought that we would play out with the Lonesome Dead's Devil Birds. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:30, same time, same place. But for the moment, here are the Lonesome Dead.
See you then.
Bye.